Hey, Andy Mattis here, and in this video I'll be covering my framework on how to create content online. So this content creation strategy allows me to publish consistently without ever running out of ideas or working myself into the ground. It makes the process enjoyable, and if I'm honest, the hardest part of creating content is just having a plan and a strategic process to follow. But having these things in place, it cuts out that feeling of overwhelm, and trust me when I say I've been there so many times, sitting at my computer, struggling with mental block, pulling my hair out, thinking about what kind of content I'm going to create. It literally gets to the point where it becomes one of those dreaded tasks that you know you need to complete. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you some hacks which I use to take all of the heavy lifting out of the process, and it also allows me to have more time to focus on the things that I think are important. I'm going to give you the exact strategy that I use to decide what kind of content my audience will resonate with, and this will allow you to create content that will attract your ideal customer. So how does that sound? I'm actually going to let you in on exactly how to do this so you can start publishing consistently and have a lot of fun in the process. If you actually implement what I'm about to share with you, that feeling of overwhelm, anxiety and depression will just vanish in a heartbeat. Now, if you're watching this video, then you probably already understand why publishing content is so important. And at this moment, you may just be struggling to find a content creation strategy that works for you. So what I'm going to cover in this video is why I think creating content is one of the most fundamental skills for just about any online business. And in my eyes, one of the biggest reasons why creating content is so important is because it allows the world to get to know who you are and what your brand is about. Good content starts to build a relationship with your audience, and it starts to build up that know, like and trust factor, which is crucial if you want to turn someone into a paying customer. Now, with that said, if you're anything like I used to be, then you're not going to be very good at it at the start, okay? And I think this is an important topic to touch on, which most people won't talk about. Content creation is an art, it's a science that you need to practice to get good at and develop mastery. It's just like going and playing a game of basketball. You're probably not going to be very good at it if you don't practice on a regular basis. And the same concept applies for pretty much anything throughout life if you want to perform at a high level. So you're going to have to test things, you're going to have to see what doesn't work, and you're going to have to make tweaks in order to fine tune the process. So please don't just expect to knock it out of the park on your first attempt. It's something that you need to be consistent with if you want to master the process. So whatever platform you decide to use, I just want you to be okay with not being very good at it at the start. And it's perfectly normal to feel uncomfortable. So I just want you to remember that being uncomfortable means that you're learning, and it's a little bit like when you first start a new job. Everyone else is working at twice the speed of you, and before you know it, you're working at the same pace as everyone else. You need to develop your voice with content, and it's perfectly fine to not have all of the answers when you're first starting out. I started with written content, and you don't even want to know how bad it was. Eventually, I dived into video, and I literally couldn't even put together a 1-minute video after like 50 plus attempts. Video scared the living daylights out of me, but I stuck at it, creating videos each week, and eventually my mentor pushed me into doing live streams on Facebook. And once again, Facebook live streams scared the living daylights out of me too. I literally went from struggling to do a 1-minute video to doing a 50-minute live stream in the space of about 6 weeks. And this happened because I was consistent with my publishing and kept pushing myself outside my comfort zone in order to get over the fear. So the more I started to publish, the more that fear started to fade away, and I started to realize that it wasn't actually as bad as what my brain was telling me. It's ironic because even the thought of publishing content before used to make me want to curl up in the corner so that I could avoid it. But the funny thing is, when I actually started publishing, I started to get some positive feedback from people around me. All I did was commit to mastering one thing at a time and executed on my plan consistently. So what am I getting at here? It's quite easy to sit there and see someone else who's many steps ahead of you and say, he's a natural on camera, or he creates amazing content. But the thing is that you're only seeing the good bits. So what I want you to do is I want you to believe in yourself, and I want you to commit to mastering whichever platform it is that you choose to use, because the following tips that I'm going to share with you will be extremely helpful. Okay, so tip number 1, and that is to become a good storyteller. And just so you know, I'm going to teach you how to create content, and I'm going to give you some ninja tips and strategies in the following steps. But in order to create good, engaging content that people keep coming back for, content that people want, and content that people like, it pretty much all boils down to being a good storyteller. Just stop and think about when you were a child, for example. Maybe you enjoyed your parents reading you a story before you went to bed. And if you think about it, we've all been programmed from a very young age to enjoy a good story. So I've had situations where I've literally met someone once, I didn't even remember their name, but I remember a good story that they told me. A good TV show or a good movie always has a good story behind it, and that's what grabs your attention, right? So a good piece of content mixed in with a good story is what would set you apart from others in your marketplace, because that's what draws your audience in. So that's what makes you unique, and that's why people follow you instead of that guy over there or that guy over there who's creating the same piece of content that you are. Throwing in your own stories and insights really helps to put your own unique personal touch on things. So you want to tap into that library inside of your head and use your own experiences to mix in with the content that you create. This is what makes people follow you, and I don't know why, but everyone loves to take a look inside someone else's life. And I just want to remind you that I'm no natural at storytelling. It's something that I need to work on bit by bit, and I used to think that I used to have no unique experiences to share with people so they wouldn't be interested, and I've also thought that I was no good at storytelling. So if you haven't already, then I highly recommend going and grabbing a copy of Russell Brunson Expert Secrets, because this book has everything that you could possibly need to be able to create engaging, entertaining content. So my next tip is to reverse engineer what's already proven to work. And I think it goes without saying, if you're just getting started, then you're probably not going to have a huge following, and constantly trying to think of new ways to create content can feel a little bit overwhelming. So you want to create content that attracts your target audience, and this is where reverse engineering comes into play. So I'm going to quickly break down exactly how you can do this. Start by picking the platform that you want to create content on, and then you want to go out and you want to find the people who are already creating good quality, engaging content and have already built a following for themselves. These people already know what your audience wants, so you want to watch them closely. And this is something that can be done on LinkedIn, blogging, podcast, YouTube, you name it. It can be done on absolutely any platform. So my advice to you is to pick one platform and focus on mastering it before trying to be in multiple places at once. Look, nobody is Superman, so if you're trying to be in too many places at once, then it's going to be really tough to make anything work, and it's going to leave you feeling overwhelmed. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to go out to the platform that you want to use, and I want you to look for the top influencers, the top gurus, or the top celebrities. And then this is where reverse engineering comes into play, because all you're essentially doing is looking for the content that's engaging and popular in topics that people enjoy. Just take a look at what's going on elsewhere. Everyone talks about the same topics which are popular because they're riding off momentum in the industry. So if you type something into YouTube or Google, you're going to get a bunch of things that come up on the same topics. And the same thing's going on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. All good content creators use the same topics. Now that brings us on to part 2. So we've already pulled a topic from elsewhere, and now we want to make it our own. So in other words, you just want to put your own spin on things in order to make that piece of content unique to you. And this is done by injecting your own stories and personality into the mix. And then that brings us on to the final piece, which is crucial if you want to get good. And this means to dominate your platform better than anyone else. So in order to be successful, you need to be creative and make your content just that little bit better than the last person. And don't expect to just knock it out of the park on your first attempt, because that's extremely rare. So if you're using any kind of search engine like YouTube or Google, then you've literally got everything that you need at your disposal. So here's what I do. I'll go and I'll find the top influencers on the platform that I want to use. So let's just say I'm using Facebook, for example. I'll search their fan pages or their personal profiles, and I'll have a look at what topics they're talking about and what hooks they're using, aka the headlines. So I'll find something that really grabs my attention, like engagement hacks for Facebook posts. So I'll note down the topic so that I never run out of ideas, and I'll also keep a swipe file where I can copy and paste the post. And what I do is I look at the structure of the post and think to myself, how can I make this my own? Or if there's some points that I don't agree with, I'll think, how can I make this better? I also pay attention to the most important section of the post, and that's the comments. So I want to see if the audience actually likes the piece of content that's being created. And by doing this, you already have all of the feedback that you could possibly need before you create your own version, and you already know that it's something that your audience will resonate with. And I just want to put it out there, guys. Don't ever copy someone else's work and post it as your own, because there's a lot of people that do that and it's not cool. Some people literally work years or something for someone else to just come and rip off their work, so don't do that. So my last tip is to plan out all of your content in advance. So what I do is I block off 1 or 2 days where I can literally just plan everything out in that time frame. So when it comes to publishing, it's literally just a case of publishing this on that day, and it just takes all of the stress out of the equation. If you use this system, then you should never run out of ideas for content again, and that feeling of overwhelm should only come back if you try to wing it. So make sure you actually take action on what I'm showing you here. Focus is everything, and I know it's something that a lot of people struggle with, so switch your phone on airplane mode and block out all of the other distractions until you can get the work done. If you do this, it will allow you to be consistent with your publishing, and 9 times out of 10, things are really simple, but we've all been programmed to just overcomplicate the process. Simplicity makes life a lot easier, it eliminates stress from the equation, and if I'm honest, that's the only reason why I don't still feel overwhelmed when it comes to creating content. So just to recap, Try and batch post all of your content because it will allow you to stay weeks ahead of schedule. And I think it goes without saying that life just always gets in the way. So there's going to be days where you can't be bothered. There's going to be a family emergency or something's going to pop up where it was going to stop you from being able to create content on that day. And you no longer need to worry because you've covered your back. This is a good habit that will serve you well in the future because you've already done the work and all you need to do is just publish it. Creating content on the fly was extremely stressful for me, but since I started using this process, it allows me to have a lot of fun and it's now become more of a hobby. And since I've been using this process, I've actually started to have a bit of positive feedback from other people too. If you got value from this, I'd really appreciate it if you smash that like button because it helps this video to reach more people, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll also be keeping an eye on the comments, so if you have any questions, then comment down below and I will get back to you as soon as possible. And that wraps it up for today, guys. Have a good day and I'll catch you on the next video.